Barchie's origin asked us to talk about the final scene in episode 17, which is the Barchie love confession. And I have to say, I screamed. It's been a long time coming.
I think this has been my favorite scene in this season because I know at some point I've said it somewhere. I don't know if it was on the podcast or somewhere else. So apologies to anybody listening to me just say that. I've said that I wanted more like human character moments, and this season wasn't really providing those. And this felt like what I've been missing from the show for far too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and shockingly, it may have been my favorite scene from the season. And you know how I feel about Barchie, but that really highlights how it's strong in comparison to everything else the season is doing completely from like a standard point of view. It was such a great character moment. And there have literally been like no other character moments this season. Not to put the moment down, it was wonderful, but it didn't have an awful lot of competition. There hasn't been an awful lot of deep, meaningful moments this season. Which is why, I was sitting watching that enthralled. I was like, where has this been all season? Where have these characters been? And it was really nice to see, particularly because Betty and Archie spent far too much time apart, considering the fact they're supposed to be together. Usually when the pocket character's off, it's to keep them apart. So it's weird to see this like unit that they are constantly in separate storylines. That doesn't work for me. And I think what that scene did is it highlighted some of the other major issues with the season. It was wonderful. It was great to get into their history. They do have a lot of history, and I have no problem admitting that. But I think that also did the show a disservice because it highlighted how weak the show around it actually is.
And it just showed how much, in my opinion, how much chemistry KJ and Lily have as performers. I don't know, they're just really good together in my opinion.
Yeah, they are. The way that the scene is framed, where it's just them on the couch, and it's a lot of like, I want to say like up close shots of their faces and their reactions. It feels very intimate, which is like, I think, a core part of their relationship. Whenever they have a moment where they get to slow down and talk about their feelings, it is very vulnerable. And there's always a through line to their past together. I love that she finally like got to hear about the goodness he sees in her in a more positive way, rather than him being like, I don't want to taint you. It was more like, you're not tainted, especially because she's been focusing on this poor cat that she killed as a child. And he was like, well, do you remember the bird we saved? And he's like, I see goodness in you. I see nothing but goodness in you, and I love you for it. And it was just a very lovely moment. I do love when we get to like have some vulnerability that's not just a 1 minute scene and then, we're back into the craziness. I like that it ended the episode. For an episode as filled as it was, we got that one quiet moment that these two definitely deserved. And I'm just happy about it. I'm happy about a lot of the Barchie content. Astro Latte wanted us to talk about Betty being Archie's destiny, which is a point a YouTuber named Kai Nicole made. And I would agree. And I do think it is hard, when you're someone who doesn't ship those two and you're waiting for your ship to come back into the story, that it's hard to recognize the points in the plot that are continuing to push you past a line of getting back to what you want. So I think for Bughead shippers and Barchie shippers, season 6 has been hard. Especially because they are very, very, very much laying the groundwork for an endgame Barchie. Does that mean we're getting an endgame Barchie? Not necessarily, because
according to Tabitha,
I was getting to that.
She took the wind right out of my sails.
Yeah.
Yes, we should. Yeah. I was irritated, and I was irritated because what she said is true. Because if you go with comics canon, that's accurate, but like, it was not necessary, especially after Veronica already saw that Betty is Archie's heaven, like their life together and a family together, including his dog Vegas, is what he considers to be the sweet hereafter. And for her to sit there and be like, oh, after Tabitha gives that revelation, I was like, girl, please, why do they keep doing this to you? We're reaching pathetic levels, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Remember in season 2, when was it the first time they started using the term endgame? And Jughead was something like, a Archie kiss right here in the present could prevent a future Bughead from imploding. And everyone was like, why are they using these terms in such like a meta, outlandish kind of way? And now here we are, forced 5 seasons later, and they're still talking about who's endgame. Not only does it show how like crazy the show's gotten, but like it feels like they've been having this conversation in like ways trying to be clever so many times now. And this is the most clever of them all, in that we literally have someone who can see the future, and we have like Barchie versus Barchie 50-50. It could go either way. Roberta, we know it can go either way. We don't need you to tell us. I don't know. Everything you said about the Barchie moment, it highlighted destiny, all of that. I was 90% agreeing with you. And then the other 10% was like, but literally they undercut all of it by having Tabitha say in the last minutes of the last episode, but actually it could go the other way.
It just feels like it's so obvious. Like we're leading up to the final 3 episodes of the season. So they're like throwing in romantic drama where it doesn't necessarily belong. Like, I don't know. It just feels like they did all this work. And I know there are people that ship the other couples that are still like holding out hope, but at this far in the series, it's like, what are we still? I think Sabrina said best. Why are we still doing this to Veronica? Why hasn't she moved on? And it just, to me, it didn't seem relevant to her character to still be pining after Archie out of nowhere. And I know she's sort of like in this weird like rut, having just like ended things with Reggie and everything that she's gone through this season. So she's kind of like, what am I doing with my life? And I hope that they don't pursue her trying to backslide with Archie and potentially destroying her friendship with Betty as a means of her to get out of this rut, because I don't think that's productive for her character.
It's not. And like, just to put like I wouldn't even say it's a Barchie to that. It's like a just analysis thing. So when we fall back into the I miss Archie hole, and she's watching Betty and Archie dance, and there's a song playing by Sabrina Claudio. And the lyrics of the song are about being in love with the perfect version of somebody, knowing that your relationship with them is actually toxic. And that's one of the lyrics that plays over Betty and Archie. Like, yeah, you can interpret it as those two seeing perfect in each other, and they're not perfect. But because it's from Veronica's perspective, the song actually shows that she is putting too much, she's projecting on Archie because she's lonely. And so I'm just like, can we please get her to that point? Because the one thing that Tabitha didn't know is what Archie's heaven is. So she's giving her this news about like, I saw in almost the same amount of futures you with Archie. And I'm just like, please stop leading her down this road, because it's not the road she needs to go.
That information?
I think she was going to say it, and then Archie died, and everyone was dying around them. Like, and so she tabled it. And so for dramatic effect, we get it at the end of the episode. I'm just like, please cut Veronica loose. I want her to be able to go back to New York if she wants to. And she's not staying in Riverdale with Archie. Why do we keep pretending that she don't do that?
She had just talked to Betty a few episodes ago about not pursuing her like work crush on Agent Drake. So it's like, what are they doing with Veronica? What are we doing?
I don't know.
It's really bothersome, because when she did the whole Black Widow, I say she did, she's still doing it, the whole Black Widow thing this season. I originally was like, oh, could this be like Varchi endgame here, because he's practically immortal, he can't be killed, and she can't be intimate with anyone because she could kill them. It's like, well, clearly that's setting that up. And then they did that in the next episode where they had Betty had that sweet moment. You can have your last kiss with Archie, because he'll be okay. Your poison ivy effect won't work on him. And then it's like, okay, well, they did that was interesting, we moved on. But then Veronica didn't move on, and she's stuck in the same rut. And then to flash back to a few episodes, Jughead, when he was sifting through Betty's memories, all of a sudden got overwhelmed by all of their memories together. And so much so that he had to text Tabitha and was like, I miss you, please come home, because he was worried that he was starting to have feelings for Betty again. And then they completely dropped that storyline, and we haven't heard from it since. Like, this is Riverdale. That's going to come back up. You know what I mean? So I feel like they're trying to set up the final season, but like not be too obvious about it. But Riverdale's obvious about everything. So I feel like that's really drawn attention to it. So that the final season's going to be about who's endgame. And I'm like, have we not passed that point at this point?
We should be, because it feels like, at least for Betty and Archie, they're fine and secure. And like Betty's not insecure about Veronica at all. She wasn't even bothered when she couldn't go get Archie herself and she had to send Veronica. She was like, she can go. And she was like, she was completely fine.
And then Veronica made that ex-boyfriend comment, and I was like, girl, you've been fine with them all season. Why are you acting up now?
Yeah. It's useless drama. And I don't care for it. We can dead the love triangle because it actually doesn't exist in the text right now. It's just two people who Jughead may have suppressed feelings, which that wouldn't be surprising, and Veronica's lonely. Like, if they want to build a path back to Barchie and Bughead, they need to do so better because I'm annoyed.
I think my favorite thing they did with Veronica in this last few batch of episodes was when Tony asked her to plan the wedding and she sort of had an identity crisis and then she had that musical meltdown. I thought that was amazing, and as always, Camila killed it. Like, I just love that scene. Like, no one, when she was like singing at people and like having that full breakdown and people's faces were just like, what is she doing? I thought that was incredible. I loved it.
It was an amazing musical performance. I think between her and Lily, the musical performances in the episodes that we caught up on were fantastic. I do love that she's toasting everybody, and then she's like, toast to the singles, and I was like, oh, here we go.
It snowballed and got more like, wait a minute, what's going on here with every lyric?
Yes, I loved it so much. But moving away from the love triangle, one more listener request was from E is Fabulous, which is a two-parter. She'd like us to talk about Sabrina's real goal, which was to get in some time with Jughead, but use Nick Scratch's excuse, which I don't think that's what happened. And also, why does Cheryl have no problem living among the dead?
Cheryl doesn't have many issues with anything. She will do whatever, no matter the consequence. I mean, she had that doll in her house, Jason's dead body. Like, she doesn't care.
No, I actually liked it. I was like, of course, given the opportunity, she would like, but it did show growth because she didn't just bring back Jason, she brought back his family.
Yeah.
Because she wants him to be happy too. So it's like if you think about Riverdale season 1, Cheryl, it would just been Jason and Polly could have just stayed in the Sweet Hereafter. But she brought everybody because it's a big Blossom family now.
Who was the child?
That's Dagwood.
Who?
Dagwood. Dagwood died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they mentioned it. There's like she's like, yeah, Dagwood. Then when they listed everybody, she said that Dagwood died, but it's like one line. And so when this child comes back, you're like, oh yeah, that's Dagwood. I forgot he was dead.
Wait, he died?
Yes, because he's older than what is the young one's name? His sister. I don't remember her name.
Dagwood and
Juniper
and Dagwood, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's older than Juniper. I don't know about how many minutes, but he is.
Yeah, where is Juniper? Not important, but
I don't know. Actually, I mean, I know it's not important, but they shuffle these children back and forth. She might have been with Alice briefly, because they pick and choose when Alice is safe to have these kids. And
yeah. And then didn't Daddy take them off her for a while? And then next episode, totally besties again. No, I feel like this is going to come back to bite Cheryl. First of all, it always does in Riverdale. And second of all, she's brought back people who have been dead for years, and they were very specific in saying that that could have a negative side effect. And Cheryl just can't be happy. So I've dark days ahead for Cheryl once again.
I know. And Heather was like, you did what now? And she's like, I had to try. It's not just one person, Cheryl. How many people did you bring back?
Yeah, Heather looked worried.
Yes, because she knows more. I like Heather. Is she somewhat of a plot device? Yes, but I do like her.
I liked her more than the most recent episode. I will say that, because I know I was telling you guys, like, I don't understand what she's up to in these episodes anymore, but I really liked her.
She at least is explaining some things.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's basically what she's relied on for.
Yes. But as far as Sabrina went, I enjoyed her arc this episode far better than I did in Riverdale. I don't think it was an excuse to get close to Jughead because she did not know Jughead. But I do think it was an opportunity for comics fans to get a little excited because those two are friends in the comics. I don't think they have a romantic relationship. in the Jughead or Sabrina comics, but they are close. And so for them to be able to interact, even though it really wasn't Jughead in that one sequence, was fun. And I know I said to y'all that I was upset as a Nick and Sabrina shipper that they did this on this show, but I actually thought it was kind of sweet once I watched it in context rather than reading the tweets from online. I do think, though, that if you haven't watched Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, you're probably lost in the sauce. Like, who is this man? And why does it matter that he's back?
Yeah, I didn't know where things ended with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina because I did not finish it. But, like, I knew some things from just like writing about it. I knew sort of how it ended, but like I didn't really get like why that was important for her to bring him back in Jughead. And I just thought it was funny that they've used Jughead twice to be a different character this season, at least that I can think of. It made me laugh.
It wasn't a nice bit of closure, but I haven't finished Sabrina yet either. So I can say, yeah, it would definitely be weird watching it without that kind of context of knowing who these people are. I'm sure everyone knows who Sabrina is, but it still relied heavily on having seen that show to understand this story. It worked well as a plot device because since Jughead wouldn't come back, they needed an excuse to keep his body alive for longer. So filling it with Nick made sense. But yeah, maybe you would have needed more context. But the scenes were lovely, and I have to say, Kieran did a great job. I love seeing Sabrina, and I was very let down by the first appearance. So it was really nice to see her have like a proper official role. They couldn't have done this without her. And that's basically all you want from Sabrina, walking in at the last minute and saving the day, and she pulled it off.
Yes, she was so nonchalant too. She was like, it took me a while, but I'm here. Also, I don't know what you guys are doing, but we're going to do a little dance. We're going to sign our names. We're going to do a little chanting. I'm going to call my pal Sharon, or is it Karan? I don't know how to pronounce it. By the way, I love this episode, Sabrina's episode, because it was hilariously bad in a good way.
Yeah.
In terms of like everything that they did. I love when like the guy who guards the river Styx. I can't pronounce his name. Sharon, something. When he creeps through the door and like Lily's giving great face because she's like, and he's just wandering around the bodies and collecting the coins. And I was like, this is what I missed about Riverdale. I love how campy it is, how weird it is, and how absolutely bad it can be in such the best way.
See, I need to rewatch this episode because when I was watching it, I was like, what is going on? What is happening? I was just like completely dumbfounded. And just because this season has been so up and down scheduling wise that I've kind of been like in and out, it just felt like I haven't had like a consistent thread. But hearing it from your guys' perspective, I kind of want to go back and give Sabrina another chance because after I watched it, I was like, I don't know if this was. I had no idea.
I have to say, maybe it's because I binge watched the last 6 in a row. Seeing that kind of campy and off the wall stuff, it doesn't always work. And believe me, it didn't in that episode. But compared to some of the stuff that the rest of the show was doing, this campy, ridiculous, off the wall, nonsensical episode about Sabrina Spellman bringing people back from the dead with this like weird demon wandering through the living room to take their souls to the sweet hereafter. It was so much more interesting than watching Percival Pickens try to just dissect the town over and over and over again. So maybe that made it look better in hindsight, but it was a lot more enjoyable than what the show's been doing recently. And you see that with The Flash sometimes, that the standalone weird episodes work better than the overall bland story. And that was definitely the case of this for me. It was gothic and it was weird and some of it didn't make sense, but it was a heck of a lot more enjoyable than what the rest of the season was doing.
Let me ask you guys, because you guys watched them all like in a row. Did it feel tonally like inconsistent? Like one episode did this thing and this episode did another thing, and maybe they dropped a plot thread from episode to episode? Because every time I watched an episode of the season, it feels like the previous episode doesn't really connect to the next episode.
Yeah, I feel like that as well. It was more obvious, I think, the last time I did the binge watch because you can sense they're starting to tie the threads through to bring the season to an end. And then they did the whole Sabrina thing, which was totally standalone and unrelated to what came next. But like all in all, yeah, I agree with that. Like yes, Percival's always at the center of it, but there's always a different story. There was the one about Tabitha traveling back in time, which was completely different to all the stuff that Archie's been doing with the Union storylines. And it feels like they're trying to be realistic while also working with supernatural stuff. And it makes every episode feel really jarring to the next one. Then you had the Veronica Black Widow one, which was totally different to everything else they were doing. None of them really go together. And they're starting to do so better as the season gets on, but that doesn't make the storylines good. That might be mean to say, but that's how I feel.
I think I was okay about like how the tone was going. I think it's because I latched on to the save the town storyline and the whole mess with the unions as my way of pulling me through the plots. But like if you don't hold on to that plot, it definitely does feel like you're ricocheting back and forth between points. And that's mostly because the characters are inconsistent. They pick and choose when Kevin is on their sides and when he's not. It's convenient when he's when they need a performance. Oh, Kevin's still working for Percival, but we need someone to do to be the performer at the SlaughterCon. So that's what he's going to do. Oh, Kevin said he's no longer working with Percival and he dropped the case. So Kevin, you can come to the wedding. Like, but you've been fighting with him for episodes. I don't understand. Or I don't really know what they're doing with Alice. It seemed like she was working with Percival. Now she's not working with Percival, but she's still being awful. But we still
wasn't
need
even in this episode, right?
No, she wasn't. Oh, I do want to know. But Riverdale's track record, she might not even know that Paul is alive before Paul gets sent back to the sweet hereafter.
Oh, goodness. That's going to be a mess.
Oh, and then, what's his face? Chip. He was back. For why?
Who?
Or what's her brother's name?
Charles.
Chip? Charles. Okay.
Yes. Chip was the fake one, wasn't he? From a few seasons ago. Yeah.
Charles was going to smother him and Betty was like, no.
She's like, enough murder has happened in this house. I was like, you are correct. I don't know why Alice is okay with smothering him with a pillow.
Where did he end up? Is he alive?
He's alive.
Yeah.
Veronica basically did like a blood transfusion type of thing with her powers. I don't know. I got lost when they started trying to explain it.
Yeah. It's because
what's his location? Is he like in the house still?
This is what doesn't make sense. The trash bag killer showed up, kidnapped Alice and Charles, but like kept them in the house tied up, and then he was like, come on Betty, let's kill them together. And the trash bag killer also slaughtered the FBI agent that was watching Charles, but Betty stopped TBK. And now I think Charles is living in the house, but I'm like, he's still a prisoner, like he has to go back to jail now that he's better. And they haven't followed through on that because it's not important to the plot.
Let's get into TBK. That kind of fizzled, right?
It did, but I think it's gonna come back.
Because like it ended too quickly.
Yeah, well, I think he's dead. Like the person who was supposed to be trash bag killer is dead. But I also think Drake is pulling the strings.
Oh, so you think it was like a team effort, like Scream?
I think
you haven't even watched Scream, have you? I always make Scream references. I always make Scream references, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I was gonna be like, I'm gonna let him leave that reference, and everyone who's listening can be like, yes.
Well, in Scream, there's usually like two killers.
Okay. Well, I think Drake is the one pulling the strings. So like, I don't think it's a partnership. I think that she was commanding.
I mean, I'd hope that character would have a purpose. She came out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, that was totally jarring. I know Reed mentioned it before, but like even watching it, knowing that she literally goes from 0 to 100 to then when the storyline no longer leads her back to 0 again. And she was there in every scene, and like things didn't make sense. Why was Betty spilling the tea about how Alice murdered someone decades ago and buried them under the floorboards to another FBI agent who she'd never interacted with before?
Mind control.
That would make so much more sense.
It
would. Why did she suddenly know all about Veronica's condition? And is she a doctor as well, telling Veronica what was wrong with her? Why was she at Tony's bachelorette party when she never interacted with this woman before? Drake was literally everywhere. And then she admitted she had feelings for Betty. Betty was like, maybe I have feelings for you. Veronica got in the middle of it and sorted it out. She was like, see you tomorrow, Drake. And then the next episode, Betty spilling her soul to a different FBI agent, and Drake's nowhere to be seen. What was the point in that storyline?
But
I
she
don't
leaves with
even
two
know if
when
they
TDK
know.
dies. I think they do. I will say this is
Hope
the
they
only,
do.
I mean, I'm very conspiracy theory about this. I just truly feel like it's interesting that Drake leaves town the same after TBK is killed. And there's no one cares that she's gone. I was like, so you're a plot device. He will come back, most likely in season 7.
No.
Yes.
I can't. Ooh. Spiritually, I cannot handle any of the storylines from the season carrying over into season 7. We need to wrap up Percival. We need to wrap up TBK and do something different for season 7.
Yeah, and drop superpowers altogether.
Yeah,
and like
Jughead, wake up.
I just yeah, the TBK thing's been a major letdown. And I know we mentioned, was it on our live episode, I think, why was that the story that needed spill over into the next season? I get the pandemic season, obviously a lot of storylines had to be carried over, but when season 5 wrapped, they decided not to wrap everything up and to let stories spill into the next season. Why was TBK one of them, when they're literally picking and choosing when he shows up, when Betty's worried about them? One episode she's like, I have to get out of town to protect everyone. The next episode she suddenly ventures back into Archie's house at the end of the episode, was like, I lost him on the highway. And I'm like, well, yeah, he'd follow you back to Riverdale, clearly. So like, why are they picking and choosing when to start this, when to stop this? And there was such an emphasis on who he was. And then there was that episode a few months ago where he fought Archie in the attic of their house, fell out the window without his mask, and Archie was like, clearly he was that builder, and it was like, was that it? And
yeah,
then
that was boring.
Yeah, exactly. And then Betty shot him this week, didn't unmask him. So was he the builder? Was he not the builder? What we placed such an emphasis on who he was, and then that didn't matter to the story. So I think the only way this can work is if Drake was secretly the one pulling the strings all along, because they need to put an emphasis on who this person was, because they didn't at the end, and that was such a letdown.
No,
But one more plot hole that I want to bring up before we leave Riverdale. There was one episode where at the end Betty like saw her own aura in the mirror. So she was like, and I wasn't sure, like looking back, if that was meant to like be like a cliffhanger, like something that we should be like looking to moving forward, or if it was just something that wrapped up her story in that particular episode, because I know she had seen it in Dagwood or something. So I'm just like, and she hasn't been like seeing any auras, like her headaches have gone away, or like she just hasn't talked about them. She was wearing her glasses in the Pretty Little Liars graveyard scene at the beginning of Sabrina's episode. But yeah, I wanted to bring up her seeing her aura in the mirror, because like they never really returned to that, or maybe that was just the beginning of her unpacking her own like fear of herself that she talked about with Archie. I don't know. I wanted to bring that up because I was reading recaps this morning and I was like, wait a minute, rewind.
I think it was a part of the Betty sees darkness in herself storyline, and therefore sees herself as a threat to other people because of it. I don't think it was handled that well.
It was too subtle, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Not that I needed to be spoon-fed, but it was just like they didn't really do anything else with that overtly.
Yeah, I feel like they were trying.
Darkness.
Exactly. I feel like they were trying to be thematic with that. And Riverdale doesn't do thematic. Riverdale does big, bold, like storylines. Like it batters us over the head with this kind of stuff. And yeah, she's seen a lot of people as threats who aren't yet threats. And I think that's what it wants us to work towards. I don't know, the fact that she saw Alice as a threat when she got angry, didn't she? And then the next episode they were besties again. So I don't know. I feel like they want us to believe that it can come and go, but I don't know if I think now that she's unpacked her own stuff, she may not see that again. And I don't know if that's an acceptable ending to that story, because I think they just wanted her to accept herself as she is, and that's fine. But why would she see herself as a threat to people she loves?
Because I think she's always seen herself as a threat to people she loves. I mean, like that, which I wanted her to get past that. I think we're getting there. I think it's a character arc that's been around for too long. Like, just please let Betty stop thinking this about herself, so we can get to other storylines that Lily can act and do well in. Because I think we need to drop it.
Yeah, there's just a lot of work to be done in these last 3 episodes that I'm like, come on, we can do it. Land this plane and we can move on to the final season and do something else.
Yeah, I think they will because of the Riverdale stuff, which my favorite part was the Jughead in the bunker. If we're getting past Barchie stuff, it's that because I think that was the best way to have the two. I think it's the veil is thin in the bunker, so he's actually interacting with both Riverdale and his own world. Hence why we see Riverdale's Jughead, who I assume will be in the next episode. I have not watched the promo, but as we're getting down to the wire, hopefully a lot of this starts to make at least Riverdale sense, if not complete sense.
Fingers crossed.